We're from Group 11, and we're going to talk about the 3 protocols of Password Authenticated Key Exchange, or PAKE. We start by briefly mentioning what we have done, and then explaining why PAKE is needed, and then describing the 3 PAKE protocols, namely AKE, CPACE, and OPAKE, and finally mentioning what we should do next. In terms of what we have done, we have chosen AKE, CPACE, and OPAKE as the protocols to discuss, because we feel those 3 protocols are the most representative of the evolution of PAKE. We have studied how they work and understood why they exist, and we have also devised the report outline based on our findings.
Why do we need PAKE? Traditional Diffie-Hellman key exchange is vulnerable to man-in-the-middle attacks due to its lack of authentication. PAKE strengthens key exchange by introducing password-based authentication, enabling users to verify their identity. First, let's discuss the EEC protocol. EEC, or Encrypted Key Exchange Protocol, was introduced in 1992. It can be said as a pioneer of PAKE. EEC combines symmetric and asymmetric cryptography to exchange confidential and authenticated information over an insecure network. While symmetric is used to create shared passwords, asymmetric generates public and private keys. This protocol safeguards even weak passwords from active and offline dictionary attacks. So, how does it work? Compared to traditional DFH, EEC provides validation using symmetric key authentication. Let's assume Alice and Bob want to establish a safe communication channel using EEC protocol. In the beginning, before conducting the key exchange, Alice and Bob share a common secret key or password P using symmetric cryptography. Step 1. On Alice's side. First, Alice computes public key EA and private key DA using asymmetric cryptography. Second, Alice encrypts EA with the secret key P and get PEA. Third, Alice put her name and get a PEA and then send it to Bob. Step 2 on Bob's side. First, Bob receives PEA and decrypts it with the shared password P and compute PEA and get EA. Second, Bob generates a session key R. Third, Bob encrypts R with EA and get EAR. Fourth, Bob further encrypts it with the shared password P and get PEAR. And then Bob sends PEAR to Alice. On Alice's side, Alice knowing P and EA, she decrypts R. Step 3, session key. Now, Alice and Bob shared EA and R and then used as a session key to protect the session. Comparison of classical Diffie-Hellman and EEC. As shown in the slide, there is a difference between DFH and EEC on how they exchange message. EEC uses password P to authenticate identities, guarding against eavesdropping. Its efficiency and simplicity, needing only 2 exponentiations per site, make it suitable for devices with limited resources. However, it is less flexible as it is required a pre-shared password between both parties, which may not always be feasible in practical scenarios.
Another protocol that is recently recommended by NIST is CPACE. CPACE has recently been recommended by NIST for password authenticated key exchange. It uses elliptic curve, which is more efficient than traditional Diffie-Hellman key exchange and thus making it suitable for resource-constrained applications. It is secure against offline dictionary attacks and also adaptive attacks. Here's how it works. Before conducting the key exchange, both parties must agree on a cipher suite. In selecting this, they must consider the resource constraint and security requirements. There are several recommended cipher suites available, but one of the recommended ones for most applications is X25519 SHA-512, which means it uses curve 25519 for the elliptic curve group and SHA-512 for the hashing algorithm. As a first step, both parties will compute the generator G from the password, session identifier, and channel identifier. G is a point in the elliptic curve group. Second, both parties will create a random private keys known as scalars. This is just a random integer that doesn't need to be within the elliptic curve group. Keep in mind that this is a secret and they have to keep this private. Third, both parties compute the public key using the random scalars and the generator and send them to one another. Fourth, upon receiving the public keys, both parties must multiply the received public keys with their own scalars. Here, they will each get the same point in the elliptic curve group. They have computed a common value k, but this is not used as the key. Fifth, both parties will use the hash function to derive the session key, known as ISK, using the computed common value k, session identifier, and transcript of the exchange. Note that this step is crucial in providing security against offline dictionary attack, as an ephemeral random key, session ID in the transcript, is used in this step. However, both parties must have the plaintext password to derive a session key. This may be okay for peer-to-peer applications like hardware pairing, but in client-server applications, this means that the server needs to store the password in plaintext. What happens if the password is leaked? An adversary will be able to impersonate a legitimate party. We need another protocol.
Now, this is where the opaque protocol comes in. Also, another protocol recommended by NIST for password-authenticated key exchange. Opaque is particularly suitable for client-server models where the server does not have knowledge of the client's password. At its core is the OPRF, a protocol in which two parties compute outputs that are deterministic but random. This protocol allows the client to input a password and the server inputs their key for an output, where the client learns of the output but the server learns nothing of the client's password. This is crucial for enhancing security as it guards against various attacks, including pre-computation, dictionary, offline, and data leakage attacks. Defined by two main phases, registration and login, opaque is employed in contexts where secure password storage and robust data exchange are paramount. During registration, the client generates a random salt password and username. The computer responds using a password that has been blinded with a salt, which is then sent to the server along with the client details. The server then takes this response and derives an OPRF output with the server OPRF key. Then, the client will use the server's response to generate their own public-private key pairs stored to an envelope encrypted with the OPRF output. This is then sent back as credentials stored in the server. The server then registers this envelope with the client's corresponding OPRF key secret indexed by their username. It's crucial to note that the user's password is never transmitted to the server, ensuring enhanced security and protection against pre-computation attacks. Even if the server is compromised, the attacker cannot deduce the user's password using pre-computed information. In the login phase of opaque, the process begins with a similar OPRF flow. The client sends their username to the server, which then retrieves the client's stored record. This record contains the client's public key, an encrypted envelope, and the server's OPRF key for the client. The server sends back the public key and encrypted envelope to the client. Then, the client, using the OPRF output, decrypts the envelope. If decryption is successful, the client and server proceed to the authenticated key exchange protocol with their respective keys. This results in a shared secret key, ensuring a secure and authenticated communication channel and enhancing the overall security of the established connection. Now, what's next in our research? As we look ahead, it's essential to discuss the open problems surrounding opaque CPAs and AKA protocols. Some questions might arise, such as, what are assumptions underlying these protocols, and under what conditions might they be vulnerable? We must explore potential improvements and perform a detailed comparison and analysis, considering factors like resource consumption, security guarantees, and suitable use cases. Delving deeper into performance analysis, it's vital to choose the appropriate reference implementation, profiling tools, and performance metrics such as computations per second and memory usage to thoroughly evaluate each protocol. And this concludes our presentation today. Thank you for your attention.